Hello everybody and welcome to the Sparkling Autos YouTube channel. And in this video, which was recorded almost 2 years ago, more on that later, I'm going to be taking a look at this Kia Sportage, or Sportage, depending where you're from, which was purchased by a family member just a few days previous to this from a car dealership, and they asked me would I apply some sort of protection to it. Now obviously I had absolutely no objections to this whatsoever, but I thought, well, I'm going to give the car a quick wash before I apply anything, and before I did that I decided to take a closer look. And as you can see from these shots, the closer I looked, the more I wanted to look away. Now don't get me wrong, I'm under no illusions. I am fully aware that the majority of car owners don't really give that much of a crap. They'll take their car to a car wash or a drive through, scratch and shine, and this really gets them through their car ownership, which is absolutely fine. It's their car, it's their business. But when it comes to a car dealership, you'd like to think they'd put a bit more effort into cleaning a car. There's clearly been absolutely no effort whatsoever here to clean the areas that you wouldn't see standing outside the vehicle. The door shuts were pigging again inside the boot or tailgate area. Inside the fuel filler cap, as you've seen, was also just looked like it had never been cleaned. Now that was all bad enough. In around these hinges I thought, well that's fine, it's going to give me something to do. It'll be a bit of content for the channel, which was new at the time. And then I opened the bonnet. So now we've gone from a car which looks like it wasn't very well looked after and certainly wasn't given a good deep clean for its new customer by the dealership, to a car which has clearly just returned from the Paris-Dakar rally. I have genuinely never seen an engine bay with this much sand and dry dirt in it. Certainly not from a car that's less than 10 years old and has spent what I would have guessed was most of its life in an urban environment. The only way I could possibly describe this is disgraceful. It's a disgrace to its previous owners, and it's an absolute disgrace to the dealership to allow a car to be sold to a customer in this condition. And it was at this stage I realised that applying a quick bit of protection was not going to be an option today. This was going to take a lot longer than originally anticipated, and there was nothing else to do but just get stuck into it. In fact, if you stood too close to this for too long, you'd probably get stuck to it. I'm just going to get on with it then, and to be perfectly honest, as bad as this looks, it isn't even going to be that big a job to clean if somebody at the dealership had known what they were doing. And when I say clean, we're obviously not going for a best engine bay on display prize at a car show. I just mean to make it a bit more respectable so that if a prospective customer was going to open the bonnet and take a look in, it would look like it's been a well maintained car and well looked after. Because it's all about first impressions. Certainly it is with me when I'm buying a car. It's one of the first places I look, because it's a good indication as to whether or not the car has been looked after. And all I've done for this first stage is apply a 20% mixture of Surfex HD with warm water, left it to dwell over the engine bay for 2 to 3 minutes, and now as you can see I'm rinsing it off. There's been no contact here, no brushes involved. This is just to get that initial top layer off and seeing where we're going to go from here. And indeed, if all you were doing is going to sell the car and you wanted to give it a quick spruce up, then spraying a product like this on, leaving it to dwell and rinsing it off like this would probably be enough. It's making it a lot more respectable, a lot more presentable. You're not going to open the bonnet and get that shock factor when you look underneath in the engine bay. However, when I get to the end of this, I'm obviously going to be applying some trim dressing around the trim under the bonnet and all the plastics. So what I want to do is go in, get all the greasy contaminants off, make sure it's all nice and clean so when I do apply a dressing, it's not simply going to disappear after a few days. And all I've done really is apply the same 20% mixture, and I'm going around it with a detailing brush. Now you can use any sort of brush for this. At the end of the day, you're doing your engine bay, you're not going to scratch anything under here. So use whatever brush you have to hand, even use an old paintbrush if you want for this job, despite what people might tell you. And the same again on the underside of the bonnet, absolutely caked in oil and grease, looks like it's never been cleaned before. So I've gone in with the same 20% Surfex, rubbing over it with a brush, and also removing the date which had been written on in permanent marker. Written there when the dealership changed the timing belt before the car was sold, allegedly. Looking underneath the bonnet, I don't know whether it was or not, but we'll get that removed too, which obviously would have been a lot easier had I just used a bit of, say, tar and glue remover. But a few seconds rubbing with the brush and the Surfex did the job. So now that that's finished and I'm rinsing the last part of it away, we'll take a quick look at the before and after the engine bay and get cracking with the next task. Now this task I'm going to scan over very quickly because it was more to do with the smell of this boot insert than anything else. The previous owners clearly had a large pet which they took to the river on a regular basis because it just had that wet dog smell that there was no way of getting it out of the car. So I sprayed it with some Tenzi carpet and upholstery cleaner, worked it in with a drill brush, power hosed it all away and then left it in the sun to dry. And that's task number 2 complete. On to number 3. So this is where the regular viewers will recognise just how old this footage is. I'm using my old wheel bucket which has some warm water in it, a splash of GB Detailing Orbit spray on wheel cleaner which foams up pretty nicely, and then filling it up with water from the pressure washer, just to generate a few suds. Now I have a lot to get through in this video so I'm not going to spend too long on the wheels. What you will notice is that these diamond cut wheels are in need of a refurbishment. Now that's something you can actually do at home if you have a bit of skill and the right tools. And if you're confident enough to have a go at it yourself, or even if you want to see the process, my friend David McBay on his YouTube channel actually did a video on that very subject in June of last year. If I can find the link, I'll leave it below. It's definitely one that's worth checking out. After, of course, you've watched all of this video. So as you can see, I've done my very best to get as much dirt as I can from the wheel faces, the wheel barrels and the arches. So off camera, I am going to crack on with the other 3 wheels and then we will get stuck into the pre-wash. And as if by magic, here we are. So I have watered down the Surfx HD which I used for the engine bay. It's now a 10% mixture which I'm pre-washing the whole car with. I'm then going to blanket it with the GB Detailing Pro Snow Foam. I don't even know if you can still get this product. If you can, I apologise. This is the only time I've used it. This was actually a sample amount that was sent to me by Graham from GM Details. You'll have heard me mention Graham's channel a few times here, and if you haven't already done so, I would highly recommend you go and check it out. Again, of course, not before you get to the end of this video. And you can see the foam here doing its job, which is to blanket the pre-wash product underneath, allowing it time to dwell and break up whatever dirt is on the car. Hopefully. And I thought I would leave in something that hasn't been on the channel for a while, which is a completely unnecessary slow motion snow foam shot. Easy for me to say. Well, that's enough of that messing about for now. Let's get the pre-wash off and see what this combination of these 2 products has performed like. Well, it's kind of hard to judge at this stage because this is one part of the car which actually wasn't too bad, thankfully. So we'll speed this footage up a bit, get the rest of the pre-rinse off and get cracking with the contact wash. GB Detailing Purity car shampoo now. And you've probably noticed quite a few GB Detailing products in this video. That's because that was my initial intention when I was recording this. I was doing a review on the brand. Unfortunately, because of the state the car was in, it didn't really work out that way. I ended up having to spend a lot more time doing things I wasn't expecting to do. But I have since used quite a few of these products in other videos, and this shampoo in particular would be one of my favourites. It's really slick, it suds up really well, and yeah, it's just very pleasant to use. But that's the easy part of the wash done. Stay tuned because this is where things get really mucky. So when it comes to cleaning a car that probably hasn't been cleaned on a regular basis, or certainly not been cleaned to this extent on a regular basis, one of the filthiest, yet arguably one of the most rewarding parts of the car to clean is around the window seals. In many ways I actually find the window seals to be something like the steering wheel of the exterior. By that I mean the steering wheel is part of the interior of the car which gets the dirtiest. You know, your hands are always gripping it, it gets sweaty, greasy. Well, the windows on the outside, all the water runs down right into the seals, and unless you're actually getting in there with a brush, you're never getting it cleaned out properly. Therefore that water sits in there, stagnates, it can get mouldy, you can get moss growing in there, unless you're cleaning it out on a regular basis, it can get pretty bad. And it's not just the window seals, they're just the most obvious, but it's basically any sort of exterior nook and cranny. And as you'll see here when I rinse this off, you only think dirt's coming out of it when you're doing your brushwork, but it's when you actually get in there and rinse after you've loosened it all, that's when you really see the dirt start to fly. So I'll just shut up for a minute and let you see for yourself. Well, I think you can agree that that is absolutely disgusting. There's no other way to describe that. Clearly hasn't been cleaned for a long time, possibly years, possibly even since the car was new. So again, as with the previous stages, we'll speed the footage up and get cracking on now with the decontamination stage. On now then with the fallout remover. So obviously you would normally do your tar first of all, but as I mentioned earlier in the video, I didn't have any tar remover here. Well, I think I mentioned earlier in the video. So I just cracked on with what fallout remover had. This is Devil's Blood, which came in a Kärcher sort of mystery box. I'd never actually used this product before, but as I had no intention of doing a decon in this car at the start of the day, I thought I might as well use what I have here, give it a go and see what it's like, and what have I got to lose? So just to briefly touch on what I meant at the start of the video, when I said I would explain why I'm using footage from 1.5 years to 2 years ago. As a lot of you will know, I'm kind of hard on myself when it comes to my footage and if things aren't perfect and whatever. But basically this camera was quite new at the time and some of the settings were a bit off. I reviewed the footage after I shot it and I was kind of annoyed with it all and I wanted to delete the whole lot. It's only as I've reviewed it again now I realised most of it's actually not that bad. The light goes off a little bit here, but apart from that, it's usable. I think it's going to make a half decent video. So yeah, that was just to briefly explain why this has taken so long to get this video out. Most of you are probably now thinking at this stage, what the hell is he talking about? So let's just get back to the video in hand. And as you can see here, well no you can't see here because it's that bloody dark, but you could hopefully see before it went incredibly dark that there was quite a lot of reaction going on. So I'm going to rinse off what's left and go over it again with built amber cortisol. And I've explained in a few videos before why I do this. Basically it's a fast reacting fallout remover, so that'll let us see if the Devil's Blood has left anything behind. In fact, it's a good idea when using any fallout remover to go over it a second time because that second hit is going to show you if you've left anything behind with the first one. Yeah. And as you can see, before I've even finished spraying the top of the door, the bottom's already started to react. So we'll speed up the footage just to see how much reaction there is and then get this one rinsed off as well. Now this isn't a product review video, but I think I can safely say at this stage that Devil's Blood on this occasion did not perform very well. So if I have no tar and glue remover, what am I going to do about the tar spots? Well, some of you may remember actually from my first ever video, I used Surfx HD as a tar remover, which although it didn't actually melt the tar and you can't see any reaction or see it run away, it does actually appear to make it easier to remove from the surface. So that's what I'm going to do here, basically because it's the only product I have to hand that I know is going to work. The appearances can be deceptive here. Obviously it looks like it's possibly even better than a tar remover because it's not melting, it's not making any mess. The problem is that you're also using a lot more friction to actually remove the tar, so there is a small chance you could cause even more marring to the paintwork doing it this way. That's why I don't particularly like to do it too often, but it's certainly something you can do if you're stuck and you don't have any tar remover. So now that the decontamination's done and the weather's starting to look pretty apocalyptic, I'm going to do what I normally do at this stage and apply a pre-wash product to the car, in this case Built Amber's Auto Foam, purely just to remove any remnants or any residue from the, well not the tar remover, from the Surfx or from the fallout removers. So I'm going to skip through that as quick as I can and we'll get cracking on with the finishing stages. And yes, I did say finishing stages, we are, you'll be glad to hear, almost at the end of this video. Not too much to do in the interior, so it's just getting a quick once over, and for that I'm using the Turtle Wax Mist. I have already done a special video on this product, so I'm not going to go into too much detail other than to say it can be used on any surface, whether that be plastics, leathers, vinyls, any interior surface. So that's exactly what it did in this video. The 4 tyres then got 2 coats of GB Detailing Onyx, which is a high gloss durable tyre dressing. After Garage Therapy's tyre serum, this is probably my favourite tyre product. It just leaves a nice, clean, dry finish. There's no fling involved, there's no nasty, greasy look to it. It just leaves a nice finish that lasts a couple of weeks. There's not really much more I can say about that. And for the engine bay plastics, I'm using GB Detailing Flex, which is a satin finish tyre and trim dressing. And granted, yes, I am using quite a lot of it here, but basically because the engine bay was so bad at the start, I wanted it to look absolutely fantastic at the end, just so it was a real good contrast. Also, if you see my garage shelves, I'm in absolutely no danger of running out of product anytime soon. I did however break the trigger, which explains what's going on here. I think I can say with some confidence that that's a hell of a lot better looking. So all I really need to do now is get the glass and the exterior protected, and we're ready to look at our finishing shots. And for the exterior paintwork, I'm using the final GB Detailing product in this video, which is Silk Hybrid Detailer. Now this does make a claim that it can last up to 4 months. I have no way of proving or disproving that, so I'm not going to pay any attention to that at this stage. All I can say is that when you do use this product, and you need very little of it, despite the fact that I sprayed quite a lot of it onto the bonnet, but it is incredibly easy to use, and it does leave the paintwork feeling ridiculously slick. Finally then, the glass, and for this I'm using a product which used to be my absolute favourite go-to glass cleaner, which is Angel Wax Vision. It cuts through any grease, cuts through any grime. A fantastic glass cleaner, there's no two ways about it. The only downside with Vision is the scent. I've absolutely no pleasant way to describe the scent other than to say if you own a cat you'd probably recognise it. But if you can ignore the smell, it does an absolutely brilliant job, and it's still one of my top 3 glass cleaners of all time. And as it turns out, I don't even know the order of my own video, because the glass wasn't the last part of the car to be finished, the exterior trim was. So I've used the same product that I used in the engine bay, which is GB Detailing Flex, the satin finish. And I've applied it liberally to a microfiber applicator, and then just gone around all the plastic trim on the outside of the car. And once it's dried in, just go around with the dry microfiber and buff off the residue. So before we take a look at the finishing shots, let's just remind ourselves how bad that engine bay was. And look at it now. The difference really is night and day, and it's the same across the whole car. Now, had I not been filming this process, which obviously adds a lot of time, there would have been 2.5 to 3 hours hard work in there. And personally, I don't think it would be unreasonable for a dealership selling the car to spend that much time, or at least 1.5 to 2 hours, getting the car prepared for sale. Certainly not if you want the customer to come back to you in a year or two to buy another car. But having seen the condition that they sold this one in, I wouldn't be rushing back to that particular dealer. Now, I'm not going to name and shame them, and you will see a dealer named on the number plates around. That is not who sold this car. That's clearly a dealer in England, which is not where I am. I just want to put that out there straight away, that they are in no way connected with the condition this car was sold in. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of this video. I really do appreciate it if you've made it this far. I know 20 minutes is a long time for anybody to stick at one channel, so genuinely thank you. It's support like that that motivates me to keep going with this channel. Other than that, I've nothing really else to add. Again, thank you very much for watching. I'll hopefully see you in the next video, and take care.